The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Gwilda Wiyaka's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the Science of Magic or endorsed in any manner by Gwilda Wiyaka, Relmar McConnell Media Company, its affiliated networks, stations, or employees. Welcome to the Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, a program dedicated to uncovering the unified nature of reality and humanity's ever-evolving place as truly galactic beings. For more information on the Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, visit us online at www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Welcome to the Science of Magic, a place where science and magic come together to transform fact into evolving truth. We can be found on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. This hour we'll be exploring, are we having fun yet? I helped my mother die. After a life lived in avoidance, indulgence, isolation, and pain, a life in which she increasingly collected things and avoided people, I watched her succumb as her body could no longer bear the burden of her denials. She loved me, of this I have no doubt, but she loved her things more. At least until the end, when she slowly started letting go of all of her treasures and clung to me. As she lay dying, while I watched her body fade, I saw her spirit build and grow above it. No longer tethered to the mundane, it could truly shine. No longer fueling her defense mechanisms, running her programs, or limited by the illusion we call reality, her spirit's glory emerged. It was then, for a brief time, a matter of hours, I got to know, connect with, and love the mother I had lived without. Then she was gone. I'll treasure those few hours for all time. I helped her cross, showed her the way to the gate. It was an honor, but in truth, I think she indulged me. In the end, she knew her own way and needed me not at all. I watched my mother die, and for the first time I saw her truly live. I know more of death than of living, yet I know more of life than most. I'm a shaman by trade. Death and life are my business. It was some months after my mother's death, while on a shamanic journey to the Celtic land of the fairies, that I bumped into my mother's spirit in non-ordinary reality. She was wearing a fancy sun hat, sitting on a lawn chair in the middle of a field of flowers, with my dead cat Pixel on her lap. Mom had loved that cat in life, and Pixel had crossed shortly after Mom did. "Mom?" I questioned, not quite believing my spirit eyes. "What are you doing down here?" "Why, waiting for you, of course. You've been ignoring me in your everyday world." "How have I been ignoring you? I hate to point this out, Mom, but you're dead." "Just because I'm dead doesn't mean I'm gone. I've been standing right beside you, and you choose not to see me, no matter what I do to try to get your attention." Come to think of it, I had had moments when I could catch a ghostly whiff of arpège, her favorite perfume. Then there was a time her crystal vase jumped off my shelf and bounced on the floor but didn't break. I was disinherited by my stepfather, and as a result, I had very little that belonged to my mother. But there was a porcelain dragon and hatchling statuary she had loved. I purchased it for her birthday one year to add to her dragon collection, and it had become her favorite. My half-sister kindly made sure I got it from the estate. The dragon had taken to migrating around on my dresser. I clean often and just assumed I hadn't put it back in its normal spot. "But Mom, I helped you cross. How can you be here?" "That's the fun of being out of body. I can be anywhere I like, anytime I want, and I'm not allergic to cats, grass, or flowers anymore." "Well, then why are you here?" "I want to help. I want to help your work, and I want to help you live. It'll be fun, so pay attention." She faded away. The very next week, the first of many irate clients showed up for an appointment. When I asked her what brought her to me, she grumbled, "Her," as she cast her thumb over her shoulder. I adjusted my sight to see in spirit, and sure enough, there stood Mom, looking very smug. "She won't leave me alone, and says I need to study with you to learn to use my gifts," the disgruntled client informed me. The woman, a naturally gifted medium, became one of my best students. My mother has blossomed over the years we've worked together. While she could not be here for me as a mother in life, She became one of my greatest allies in death. Mom now appears as a lovely young woman with sparkling green eyes and a wicked sense of humor. Who says death is the end? Our guest this hour, Roberta Grimes, is the author of many fine books on the afterlife. She's a business attorney who had extraordinary experiences of light in childhood. She spent decades studying nearly 200 years of abundant and concise communications from the dead, quantum mechanics, and the nature of consciousness. Roberta shares her what she's learned in an enjoyable, easily understood trilogy: The Fun of Dying, The Fun of Staying in Touch, and The Fun of Growing Forever. After this commercial break, I'll introduce Roberta and explore life, death, and the hereafter. Should be fun, so don't go away. You're listening to The Science of Magic. Prior innovative episodes can always be found on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net. The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State-certified occupational school training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com. Welcome back. This is The Science of Magic, dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour is Roberta Grimes, author of many fine books, including the Fun Trilogy, The Fun of Dying, The Fun of Staying in Touch, and the upcoming The Fun of Growing Forever. Her website, www.robertagrimes.com. Roberta, thank you so much for joining us on The Science of Magic.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much. We're going to have fun today. I mean, this is... If we can't have fun talking about death, when can we have fun?
Absolutely. When is it more needed, right?
Right, exactly.
People take themselves way too seriously around death.
Oh, I know. It's unfortunate. I sort of see my role in life is just trying to help people understand that there's not only is there nothing to be afraid of, but it's just the most fun you can ever imagine having. So, let's get at it. Let's just enjoy it.
I'm fascinated by your research on death and dying in the afterlife. Would you mind sharing how you did it and where you got your information?
Well, we have a lot of information about what happens at and after death. Most people are just not aware of it, though, because neither Christianity nor any other religion really looks at it. And, of course, science does everything it can to pretend that none of this exists. But in the latter part of the 19th century, we started to get some very good communications from people we used to think were dead, primarily through deep trance mediums, right up until the 40s, the 1940s. There was really a heyday then of communication. And so once I found all of this treasure trove, I just spent decades reading hundreds of these, and just as a hobby, I never thought I would do anything with it. But I basically have spent my life trying to figure it all out. And the beauty of it is that they're all consistent. Received in the southern part of the United Kingdom, received in the eastern part of the United States mostly. They're all the same over almost 80 years, 70 years. Because there are no outliers, I think we can say with certainty that those couldn't be coincidence, the fact that they're all the same. So we know what's going to happen when we die. No question about it.
Well, you say, let's start with your book, The Fun of Dying. Why did you name your book that? And tell us how dying is fun.
Well, the concept of dying being fun comes from people who have actually done it. And yes, people have said to me, well, I've got cancer. This isn't fun. No, it isn't fun to get there. But once the dying starts, that's when the fun begins. There really is no other way to express it. I didn't come up with the title. I wanted to call it Dying for Dummies, but of course that would have been a copyright infringement. So then I decided to call it Dying for Idiots, and my publisher loved the book, said, we're not going to call it that. Come up with another title. So I woke up one morning within my mind, the title's The Fun of Dying, The Fun of Staying in Touch, and The Fun of Growing Forever. And I knew that last one wouldn't come out till 2017, which that was going to be, 7 years later. I couldn't understand why the delay, but I thought, The Fun of Dying, now there's a good title. And that's where that came from. I didn't understand at the time what I now, of course, know, and we all know. We have primary guides, and they have teams, and this all came from them. It really didn't come from me. But I think the title works, and people don't find it as strange now as they first did in 2010.
Yeah, I bet it was a little shocking at that point.
It was shocking. It really, and it's a happy cover. It's got a big sunflower. I mean, this is a happy time. We should start talking about it as a happy time.
I see a sunflower. I thought you'd be pushing up daisies with the book, though.
That's true. Yeah, that's right. Daisies would not have been a good choice, would it? Oh, I didn't even think of that.
So, do you do work with some people that have had near-death experience? And if so, what have you learned from that?
Well, here's the thing. Almost everyone who knows about my book assumes that that's where I got my information. But the problem is that near-death experiences really don't tell us much about death, because it's a whole different experience, a whole different phenomenon. Near-death experiences vary by a lot, and what they basically show us is two things. They show us that the mind easily exists outside the body, which is very important, and they show us that once the mind is in the astral, which is the just above us in vibration, everything is love. The atmosphere is extraordinary, rich with love. So those are very important things, but that's the only thing, really. Those two items are the only things that we can say that near-death experiences have in common with death, which is very uniform, unlike NDEs. Pretty universally, the same things will happen for all of us, and that's true all over the world.
That makes sense to me, because it seems like in near-death experiences, we're each doing our own dance, scrambling to avoid or scrambling towards, and we're still really in our personality. So that just makes perfect sense to me. Would you mind going into death and faith? What do you see as the difference between the death process for those that believe in the hereafter and for those that do not? Have you run across any of that information?
Yeah, I mean, there is a consistent death process, and as long as we don't have a strong belief in something else, either nothing, believing with certainty that we will not survive our death can cause us a problem, but also having too strong a belief about what happens after death causes the same problem, which is that our minds, being extremely powerful, create an alternate reality. So, for example, those who are certain that they will not survive their deaths will typically for a time basically wander in a void, and they have to be rescued from that. And sometimes that can take a while in terms of Earth time. People who are certain about a certain kind of afterlife will find themselves in the afterlife that they believed would happen, with a lot of other confused people, because it's not real, and they have to be rescued from there as well. The most common, by the way, has been clouds. People would find themselves walking around on clouds. Sometimes there would be St. Peter's gates, and but it's not real. Where Robert Monroe, who was, I think, the greatest out-of-body explorer, called these places hollow heavens, because they're hollow. They don't, nothing happens in them as would happen in a completed death. It's just unfortunate. So I tell people, don't be certain about what's going to happen. Just know it's going to be wonderful, and let the process happen for you, and it happens beautifully and without any worries at all.
That's really great advice, Roberta, because I of course, do a lot of death assisting in my line of work, and I see the people that have no faith being absolutely so terrified to go, they suffer overly long
Oh,
and then
yes,
hang
that's
around
right.
later. Yeah.
Right, absolutely, that happens. Yes, my mother was one of those. You talked about your mother's experience. My mother, cobbler's kids always go barefoot. No matter how many times I tried to tell her what would happen, no matter how many times I actually read The Fun of Dying to her, she refused to go until her entire body gave out. Then the
Mm.
first time I spoke with her after her death, she said, "I don't know what I was afraid of. This place is wonderful." But she just, and there are people who are like that. That's why I tell people, empower yourself with knowledge. Understand what the process is and know what's going to happen, and then as it happens, just let it happen. But another problem, of course, too, is if you don't know what can go wrong, those things can go wrong for you. For example, when you're first out of your body, if you allow yourself to be distracted by the people around your bedside who are upset, he or she just died, and especially if you're young or it's unexpected, there can be a lot of drama in the room. You can't let it distract you, because if you do, it lowers your vibratory rate and you can't see your deathbed visitors and you end up stuck. It's how we make ghosts. It's a pity that some people don't understand how easy it is not to have those problems.
It is amazing. It is an amazing problem because, again, working in non-ordinary reality, we have a whole population of people that exact thing happened to. They got distracted in the process and
Yeah,
got stuck, and there's very few people that know how to help them get across.
that's
So,
right. Yeah,
Roberta, how does hell and damnation fit in here?
it doesn't. There is no fiery hell. There is no eternal damnation. There is no judgment by either God or any other religious figure. There is judgment, but it's by ourselves. It happens very soon after we die. We go through a life review where we get to experience again everything that happened in the life just completed and all our emotions associated with whatever happened. But we also get to experience what happened from the viewpoint of the people we affected, for good or ill. People who've been through it and will say that it's like the worst thing you can imagine, because you had no idea how many people you affected in a negative way, even when you were a child, when you teased kids, or how you made your ex-spouse feel, and all of that's really hard to go through. But the good news is that when you've done nice things for people, kindnesses, you get to feel how you made them feel too.
Mm.
But
Well,
that's
so
it. That's the judgment. And if you will forgive yourself for what you've done, you're fine. If you don't, you can end up in what Jesus called the outer darkness, which is the lowest astral level, very unpleasant.
So that probably what Catholicism refers to as purgatory, and the Tibetans refer to as the bardo. It's where you
It
just kind
may
of get stuck
be.
in all that negativity. Yeah.
Yes, probably so. But the point is, you put yourself there. I think it's very important that people understand that. If you don't judge yourself, certainly nobody else does. And oddly enough, Christians are surprised to hear this. Jesus tells us that right in the Gospels. He says God doesn't judge us. He says he doesn't judge us. And yet people have to this day believed somehow that there would be judgment beyond themselves.
Hmm. We're our own worst enemy, aren't we?
Oh, in many ways.
I have about a
Many ways.
minute. I have about a minute. What advice would you have for the dying?
Just love and trust. This is the most wonderful experience of most people's lives. And just love and trust and be open-minded and open-hearted about it. Most people get there naturally by the time their bodies are dying. It's a wonderful, very benign process spiritually, but just be open-minded about it, and everything will be fine.
So if we're dead set against, we're dead set on a belief system, or we're dead set against on having a belief system, both of those are deterrents rather than helpful at the time of death.
Absolutely. Yes, you really can screw yourself up unnecessarily. Just open up your mind and you're fine.
Just give in to the process. Boy, if we could live
Absolutely.
like that, if we could live like that, life would be better. So it makes sense that
All
dying
right.
would be better as well. So we're
That's
going
right.
to have to take a break. Roberta and I will return to our discussion after the news at the bottom of the hour. You're listening to The Science of Magic. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Previous broadcasts of thought-provoking episodes can always be found on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net. We'll be back, so don't you go away. The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State certified occupational school training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com. Welcome back. This is the Science of Magic, a place where magic and science come together to promote enlightenment. Visit us online at www.thescienceofmagic.net. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour is Roberta Grimes, author of many fine books, including the Fun of trilogy, The Fun of Dying, The Fun of Staying in Touch, and The Fun of Growing Forever. Her website, www.robertagrimes.com. Roberta, we were having fun talking about dying, as I recall, and I've got a question for you here. Are you aware of, this is a shamanic question, but are you aware of people coming back to be helping spirits? And if so, what can you tell us about that?
Well, with and I haven't studied Eastern philosophy, thought, or any of that. My focus seems to be, my personal task in life seems to be to help Westerners. And what we learn from the Western afterlife evidence is that we all have spirit guides who are people who were in bodies. We have also guardian angels, but our angels have not been in bodies. Our spirit guides have been, and they work with us and through us. For example, all of my books, I now realize, have been channeled. I wish I were smart, but I'm not that smart. I'm getting them from people who know much more than I do, and they're using my research so that I'm getting information from research, but they're putting it together, making it make sense, and writing it much better than I could. But these beings not in bodies, who have been in bodies, help us so much. Most of us have a number of spirit guides. We all have a primary one who has been there through life, sort of signed up at our birth. But there are others, too, who come and go as we need help. I have 11 right at the moment, and most of the people listening have at least 2 or 3. But if you take up more things that can use expert help, you'll get more spirit guides. I have 3 separate ones who just work on my fiction. If I didn't write fiction, they'd go help someone else. So that's the beauty of the system. We are all cared for, loved, nurtured, helped in every possible way. All we have to do is accept that help.
So the second book in your trilogy, The Fun of Staying in Touch, it's another fascinating subject to me. And how can people who are not mediums stay in touch with loved ones that have passed?
Well, they try to stay in touch with us. The trick is not to shut it down. Most people, because they're not aware of the things that the dead typically do to get our attention, it's almost an automatic thing. When someone dies who left close loved ones behind here, there are beings on the other side. Again, they're typically people who have lived here but are sort of upper level now in terms of their development and growth. They will teach how to do various things, how to work with electricity, how to herd butterflies and dragonflies, how to do all the things that are typical signs. and they'll help our loved ones to do it. And so we just need to know what the signs are that they're likely to give right after and within the year or so after their death. And then when we notice them, immediately say, thank you, please do it again. Say it aloud. Thank you, please do it again. Because our loved ones are desperate to know that they've been in touch with us. And it's immensely frustrating to them when they keep giving us signs and we never, everyone says, oh, that was a coincidence. The fact that I've 3 times seen his name on license plates in various ways in the past week, just a coincidence. The fact that every time I walk into a store, the song we danced to at our wedding is playing. She would never be able to do that, just a coincidence. No, none of it is a coincidence. These are all signs that our dead loved ones give us. So just be open-minded, and if something might be a sign, you don't know for sure, just say thank you, and you'll keep getting more.
It's amazing how specific they are to the person, isn't it?
Yes, totally. Yeah, they'll do what they think you are going to recognize as coming from them.
That's amazing. So what's the difference between a dead loved one trying to make contact and a haunting? How can we tell the difference?
Oh, my goodness. Hauntings are very rare, number one. A haunting should never be the first thing that you think of. I mean, I've been doing this work, and I've been dealing with the public on this for more than 10 years, and doing this work for much longer than that. And very, very seldom does a haunting ever even come up. So I would assume if you've had someone die and the lights start to flicker, think it's your loved one. Don't ever think it's a haunting. There are negative spirits, though. People need to be aware of that. But you can protect yourself fairly easily from them, and it's just part of our normal hygiene. You know, you brush your teeth, you create spirit light and surround yourself with it. I mean, it's just sort of normal. We make sure that the negative entities can't get near us.
How do you see that staying in touch helps with people in the mourning process, or do people need to mourn first before they can be clear enough to receive the contact from the other side?
That is such a good question, Gilda. The problem is that people are, when they're deep in grief, their minds literally block these communications. Grief is a very low vibration energy. It's extremely negative, and people. So our loved ones, and I hear this quite often, this kind of story. Our loved one is desperate to get through to us, and can't because we've blocked it. So I tell people the first thing to do if you've lost a dead loved one is convince yourself that person is just fine, and get your grief lightened as much as you can. I'm not saying get past it. I'm not saying go on with your life. I'm saying none of those things. I'm just saying it's a negative energy. It doesn't help anyone for you to really wallow in it. So instead, get to the point where you're light enough that your loved one can actually get through to you. Because when your loved one does, you're going to feel a whole lot better knowing that, yes, I mean, my mother, when she died, filled my backyard with butterflies one day, 2 weeks later. The next day it was dragonflies, and the next day it was butterflies, hundreds in each case, and only one or the other, never the two together. The 4th day, when I went out onto my deck thinking, what'll she do now? A butterfly and a dragonfly flew in front of my face side by side. You would never see that in life.
No, I haven't.
That was a very spectacular sign from someone who I'm sure had helped doing it. But when you're open to it, you'll get all these signs. It's just amazing what they'll do because they love us so much, and they've got a lot of time anyway. It's not like they've got to work for a living anymore. So they're happy to help us to feel better, which is what this does.
You know, I have Celtic background, and the Celtic wakes were amazing because they really honored the joy and sorrow sine wave. In other words, you can dig deep into your sorrow, but you have to go equally far into your joy before you find the balance. And there's this Celtic tradition called the Three Harpers, and the first song is a mourning or a funeral drudge. The second one is absolute joy and party time. But the process isn't over until they sing the lullaby. And I just love those concepts because it helps us find balance, and that lullaby puts us in that soft, open, receptive place where we can hear our loved ones trying to get a hold of us.
Yes, that's a beautiful thought.
How How can friends and family assist that process for each other? And you know,
Well, it depends, because we're all different in the things we do, so people mourn differently. I think it's important that people be willing to listen. Just bring a casserole and say I'm here. If you want to talk, I'm here, and just listen to people, because my experience has been when I've been involved in helping someone get through a recent death, that they want to talk. They want to talk about their loved one. If you have stories to tell about the loved one, they'd love to hear those stories if they're pleasant. If it's one thing we must never do is say get over it, or say anything that's religion based. Nothing like that is helpful at that time. And the reason I say not to say things that are religion based is, number one, none of the religious beliefs that I'm aware of, and I've studied religions extensively, none of them is real anyway. They're all human made. But also people will become fearful because they'll start thinking, oh my goodness, well, was he really as good as we hoped? Maybe he is in hell now. You cause worries that are just unnecessary. So just give them love and be there for them. That's the main thing I think I would suggest people do.
so be the heart with ears.
The heart with ears, I love that. Perfect, yes, exactly. Be a heart with ears.
That's beautiful.
Perfect.
Yeah, and it's so important that we just be present for each other and accept each other the way we're coming, wherever we are in our process, because that's the way things keep moving. Is if the process is accepted, the person's accepted in the process, then they can keep moving and move through it. Roberta and I will be back on the flip side of this commercial break. You're listening to The Science of Magic, the place where altruistic professionals like Roberta of science and the esoteric create common ground for the betterment of our world. You can always listen to previous transformative broadcasts on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net. The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State certified occupational school training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com. Welcome back. This is The Science of Magic, bringing together gifted people of service to the world. Our website is www.thescienceofmagic.net. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour is Roberta Grimes, author of many fine books, including The Fun of Dying trilogy, The Fun of Dying, The Fun of Staying in Touch, and The Fun of Growing Forever. Her website, www.robertagrimes.com. Roberta, I'd like to talk about your upcoming book. The Fun of The Fun of Growing Forever. Can you explain to me how we grow after we die?
Well, we start growing when we're here if we're smart. When I got this title, 6 years ago, I thought it would be more about what happens in the afterlife. I thought that's what it would be about. I didn't realize till last fall that it's about growing spiritually. What the dead tell us is the same thing Jesus tells us in the Gospels, and actually other religious figures say it too. We're here to grow spiritually. That's the reason the universe exists. We come here the way you'd go to a gym, although this is a spiritual gym. And we work out, with all these things the bad things that happen to good people are just like the machines in the gym to strengthen us spiritually. And it turns out that the teachings of Jesus in the Gospels, forgetting anything having to do with Christianity, nothing to do with Christianity, the teachings of Jesus in the Gospels are the easiest, the most effective way for us to grow spiritually. And it doesn't even take long, and you don't have to do anything complicated except live your life. Isn't that amazing?
That is amazing. That is amazing. Would you mind sharing a little bit more? Now, that book was, let me see, was that, I'm trying to think of the name of it, the one you wrote about Jesus. It was an amazing book.
It's called Liberating Jesus. And it came out in the fall of 2015. And it was only when that book came out that I realized that it tells us what the teachings are, but it doesn't say how to apply them. And since I had been living the teachings for some years, I knew how to apply them, and I knew what a difference they make. And that was when I understood what this book was supposed to be about. Those who have read it in manuscript and almost in galleys now, it'll be out at the end of August, those who have read it have loved it as much as people have loved Liberating Jesus, because no Christian denomination at all ever follows the teachings of Jesus. They just don't take them seriously. And it turns out that the teachings of Jesus are an integrated system, and it works so well. And you don't have to chant or have a guru or go to church or do anything except live your life in certain ways. And within 2 or 3 years, you're transformed. And you can make any lifetime your last lifetime on earth. And this is the easiest way to do that. So that's what the fun of Growing Forever is about.
So you brought up something. How does past life and reincarnation fit in here?
Why would we have to reincarnate? Well, if you go to the gym and you just don't get on those machines, you got to keep going back to the gym. And the problem is that we don't remember why we're here. We come in with these great plans for growing, and then there's amnesia that sets in so that we'll concentrate on this life. But the religions have all failed us. They've never told us why we're here. So we have to keep coming back over and over and over again in hopes of learning the lessons we could learn in one lifetime pretty easily. So that's what reincarnation is. And yes, it happens. And yes, Jesus talks about it in the Gospels. But we don't have to do it. We can get off the wheel. The Buddhists call it turning on the wheel to keep coming over and over again. You can get off in this lifetime. All you need to do is strictly follow those teachings for a few years. And it transforms you internally. That's the difference. Religions give us rules. There's no rule that transforms you internally. The rules are really useless. What's useful is the teachings and following them. And there are reasons why. I have figured out why it works, because I kind of couldn't believe it myself until I realized why it works. It doesn't, the teachings of Jesus do not, and other great teachers, don't teach us anything. All they do is help us remember who and what we already are. We're already perfectly part of the eternal mind, which we call God. We just have to remember that, and that's what the teachings do for us.
As I'm hearing you speak, I realize the difference between what you're portraying here and the way religion, in a lot of the more dogmatic forms, beats us to death with the Old Testament, that what Jesus reportedly came to replace.
Yes. Jesus came to replace the entire Old Testament with the law of love. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. Love your neighbor as yourself. In that consists all the law and the prophets. That's what he says in the Gospels. He meant that. Because when you follow the law of love, you really don't need to worry about the rest. It all will happen naturally. And it works. I mean, I don't know what better way to say this to people. You don't have to keep coming back, and it makes you happy now, and it's easy, and it makes you happy after you die. I mean, to make this your last lifetime, to end up in the upper levels when you get where you're going, and to be able to be there for eternity, what could be better than that? I mean, that's the ultimate reward. There's much more fun stuff to do there than there is on the lower levels, and you just want to be there.
And yet you can still participate here even though you're there. Is that what you've seen?
Oh, sure. Because people easily are able to lower their spiritual vibration. You just can't go higher than your own spiritual level of development. So, yeah, the highest level people are able to come back and be with their loved ones here and be useful here if that's what they choose to do. But as a practical matter, most people don't want to keep incarnating. It's not fun to be here. It's really fun to be where we end up, all of us end up going.
Tell me a little bit more about love. Are there varying frequencies of love? And is love the highest vibratory frequency we have access to?
What good questions! Consciousness energy exists in a vibratory range, from the highest, which is perfect love, to the lowest, which is fear. Not hatred, but fear. Although hatred is one of the cluster of negative emotions around fear. And there are all kinds of love. The kind of love you have in your family or for your lover is not the kind of love we're talking about. Well, the kind of love we're talking about is love for all of humanity, to look at another human being and feel love. That's the kind of love we're talking about. Perfect strangers on the street. And yes, that is who you are, and you begin to feel that way naturally when you have followed the teachings. It's amazing. You don't even have to try. You end up loving your fellow human being in ways that really, unless we've been there, we can't believe it.
Before we run out of time, Roberta, where can people find your wonderful books?
Well, they're on Amazon. They're in bookstores. They're in the process of being translated into 33 languages, so they'll be available. Yes, worldwide. Isn't that amazing? I have a wonderful publisher. So they'll be available worldwide by the end of the year.
Do you have something to share with our listeners about how to walk this walk? How do you get started?
The first thing you need to understand is that you are a powerful, eternal being. That's who you are by your very nature. You never began, you never will end, which means you're not immortal, you're eternal. Nothing can ever harm you. You are the best beloved child of an infinitely powerful deity, which is the only thing that exists. And when you get that as a basis, then everything else is joy for the rest of your life and forevermore. That's the most important thing I would like to impart to people. What I'm telling you is true. God loves you more than you can possibly imagine. And the fear that religions instill in people is the opposite of love. You can't love what you fear. So the religions that teach us to fear God are doing, there is no devil, but if there were one, they're doing the devil's work. It's important to get all of that out of the way and turn to God in perfect love, because God's right there waiting for us.
So when we're using fear to control each other, that's exactly what we're doing. It's not fear that's going to be our salvation. It's love. Roberta, I can't thank you enough for being on. It's always so much fun. We'll have to play again sometime. Our guest has been Roberta Grimes, www.robertagrimes.com. This has been The Science of Magic. Remember, you can always listen to past thought-provoking episodes on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net. Until next time, dear ones, may you be blessed with knowledge, comforted with love, and remember, life and death can be fun.